Wasn't there a wonderful opportunity, a teaching moment, a learning moment to educate all at Dodger Stadium in 1970 and tell those season ticket holders that sat in the same row as Alan Fish, in the same seat as Alan Fish? Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming back to another recording of Fallible Safety Now Talks. I'm Jordan Scott. I'm here with Brianna Ludwig. I'm excited to bring on our guest in a few minutes. For those who are joining us for the first time, I started Fallible Safety Now back in 2019. Been a huge baseball fan for a very long time. I saw something on the news which was very disturbing about a little child getting hit by a ball, and from that point on, it's been really 6 years going strong. I've been working with a journalist by the name of Brendan for 6 years, and we've done probably about 80 interviews with people who have unfortunately been hurt by balls and their family members, and a lot of baseball players who've told us about their own dilemma about going to work, knowing that maybe it's inevitable that one of them will be doing some serious damage. So they have an opportunity to talk about that as well, and all kinds of people connected to the game. So that's been great. That work continues. More people are finding us at Foul Ball Safety Now all the time, whether it be victims or baseball players. Even sometimes lawyers are finding us, asking us for some help for their cases coming up or some curiosity, things that they were curious about helping, about them getting help for their case, and if we could provide any insight or things like that. So that's the background, the Foul Ball Safety Now for the most part. We will continue going because we feel like there's a lot of work to be done. There's been some news at Fallible Safety Now, or anyone who's been paying attention to baseball in the last few weeks. There's been the playoffs going on. There's been the World Series we're in the middle of. So going back to the playoffs a few weeks ago, there was a game going on between the Seattle Mariners and the Detroit Tigers. And what happened, a bat broke. A baseball player who had just hit 2 home runs earlier in the game, Jorge Polanco for the Mariners, breaks his bat, and the bat goes over the net. Nobody in America knew at the time, but when they went to replay, going into commercial, it was about 5 minutes after the broken bat incident, you could actually see the bat coming over the net from the seating perspective, and you heard the announcer say, "Yikes, look out." So we have that at Foul Ball Safety Now for people to see. You can see the links, and you'll find the video, and you'll hear the announcer say, "Yikes, look out." So that in itself may be effectively the beginning of a brand new conversation because the world saw it. Unfortunately, nobody really commented about it. It kind of blended in with all that was happening in the exciting game, but not anyone on social media actually made any comment to it. I was very surprised. I thought there would be more comments from either people in that section or people watching saying, "Did anyone just see what I saw?" Which was a broken bat flying into seats, potentially like a boomerang that could spear your heart because it was a broken bat, and a bat is a bat. But no, nobody made any comments about it, but I think we will stir the pot a little bit there and hopefully start a new conversation about why business as usual in 2025 in professional baseball would allow such things to happen. So that being said, we had some other thing that we also posted just up on the website. 2 incidences that went down in the World Series just in the last few days. Shohei Ohtani, he's the face of baseball all over the world and in the United States. He's on the Dodgers a couple of days ago in one of the first games of the World Series. He actually hit a foul ball down the line drive, and he cringed, like anticipating he may have just hit somebody or potentially maybe was going to hit someone. So we wrote something up in Foul Ball Safety. You guys can see the cringe moment and why are these baseball players in 2025, including Ohtani, experiencing those cringe-worthy moments where they're hitting the ball potentially maybe hurting someone because he was reacting like he may have just hurt someone or could have just hurt someone. As anyone would react, we would all cringe if we were doing something that potentially hurt someone, intentional or not. But why aren't we just taking it off the shoulders of these professional baseball players, young adults, or guys like Ohtani who've been doing this for a number of years? Why are these guys going to work at colleges, in professional baseball, at major league level, in all levels of baseball? Why are there these cringeworthy moments where these young athletes or these professional athletes have to experience cringeworthy moments in their workplace? I certainly want to take it off their shoulders where they don't have to think about that. Well, unfortunately, that still exists. So please, everyone, check out Foul Ball Safety Now, and you'll see the link. I think we call it Shohei Ohtani Vulnerability World Series 2025. People will see the face of baseball going through, lack of a better term today, cringeworthy moment. And then the other night, from back in 20 years ago or before, there was a big show in America called Entertainment Tonight, and Mary Hart was the host, and she sits in the first row behind the net at Dodger Stadium. She's been there for years with her husband, Bert Sugarman. Ball goes up in the air, ball goes right down, and apparently Bert got hit. And the game may have not stopped too long, but yeah, you saw everyone gathering around. Bert Sugarman and Mary Hart. Even see Mary Hart holding the ball. Mary and Bert are always seen on every pitch because the camera is coming through from center field, so you always see the people in the first row, the same 12 people, or whatever. They're always on every pitch. So Mary Hart, I'm sure, knows that she's been on TV, certainly in the World Series for years. So she even held up the ball after the ball may have hit him. We didn't actually see the ball hit him, but we saw people and attendants and maybe first state people tending to Bert. He seemed to have been okay. There may have been some insensitive comments that you guys can interpret for yourselves of what the announcers said about maybe they should have had a glove or something, but I'll let you guys read that tab. It's under press releases. There's a lot of incidences that we continue to discover. People are self-reporting their injuries from 2025. We're finding things that Brianna and others are helping bring to the table that we haven't even known about. People have been self-reporting their injuries for years and years. So we have to go back and find out major incidences or just regular incidences of people getting hurt by balls. So we want to talk about that. So, all right, so that's sort of where the news is at right now. Brianna, how are you today?
Doing well, doing well. We're doing our part here to try and prevent these injuries moving forward. So, as much awareness as we can spread through these conversations, it's very important. And I'm excited to introduce our guest today. Her name is Tammy Taylor. She has been a nurse for over 30 years, and she is also a mother of three. Tammy, welcome to Foul Ball Safety Now Talks.
Awesome. Thank you, Brianna. I really appreciate. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Nice to meet you again, Tammy. We're excited to have
Yes.
you on board with us today. I know in your line of work you've seen a lot of things, and you've been in this healthcare industry for a long while. So we really don't want to take too much of your time in reflecting on your own career. We really hope you're ready for us in bringing us interesting questions about foul ball safety now.
Yes, yes, thank you. And I did a little bit of my homework and really dug into it. And we are huge baseball fans also in this household, so this really was it's a very important subject. So Jordan, why don't
Yes.
you take us back to the moment that you realized that foul ball injuries were more than just rare accidents? And was there a specific incident or
Mhm.
story that made you say this
Mhm.
has to change?
Really, back in 2019, what I referred to in the beginning of the recording, when I started, I saw something on the news. Being a huge baseball fan and being in a position to make a conversation out of what we had an idea was really happening, but really didn't investigate into it. I think all of us could have gone deeper into learning about this. There's 80 million baseball fans. Let's say there were 80 million baseball fans. I think most fans really haven't taken a look at the history or the legacy of the foul ball experience or the foul ball regularity, foul ball situations where it does create damage. And from the point I saw this morning news program and saw this little girl get hurt in Houston, I thought it was time to throw my hat in and become an advocate, soon becoming more of a full-time advocate because there was so much to discover from 2019 till now. And just putting it in front of people that don't know about this is a win because effectively
Mhm.
we can start a new conversation that really wasn't happening.
So, what do you think surprised you the most when you started researching how often these injuries happen? What surprised you?
I really thought that there should have been more information put forward to the baseball fans year after year. Every year, there's a number of foul balls hit. We have something called Exhibit A1 at
Hmm.
Foul Ball Safety Now, which demonstrates how many foul balls there could be per game. But when you multiply not only at professional baseball, but at all the other professional leagues, where there's 5 times as many more games in those leagues than there are in MLB, we talk about 2,400 plus major league games a year. We're also talking about 14,000 other professional games every single year. And it really does demonstrate the Exhibit A1 just how many foul balls there are and what directions they go towards. And what's missing is that we know the data, or at least MLB does. They've been tracking things for the last decade or two. We would
Hmm.
take a look at Exhibit A1 and we would probably ask our next question is, well, since a large percentage of those balls are going into those high risk areas, how many really do go at 100 miles per hour? And I wouldn't be able to answer that, but MLB would.
Mhm.
And then we could
Right.
determine if exactly how many times our families sat in certain sections and could have been exposed to, these kind of missiles.
We're seeing that some teams have placed nets up, but we see balls going even beyond that, and
Right?
I believe that's probably because the athletes are continuing to improve, they're getting stronger. The technology with bats and things like that is
Mhm.
is increasing, so really making it essential to extend that. I mean, would you say that's probably the case?
Well, I never really brought in the fact that these guys are much stronger, or maybe in the years past there was a steroid controversy. I don't usually
Hmm.
bring that up. And the reason
Hmm.
why I don't is because there was a young man who died, a 14-year-old boy died at Dodger Stadium in 1970. So whether he was hit by a ball that was 94 miles per hour, and today that same batter, because they're stronger and the nutrition is better, would hit it at 108 miles per hour, it's still a crazy line drive, whether it's back in
Hmm.
1970, whether it's in 2025. So
Hmm.
I believe that all ballparks, there's 199 ballparks that we can concentrate on. There's 30 major league ballparks, and then there's another 169 ballparks. 120 of those ballparks are MLB affiliates like the Astros, like the Rangers, like the Mets, like the Yankees. They all have 4 affiliates. So if they're paying the salaries of these 120 clubs, which they do, you would think that they would make sure those people who are supporting those teams are in a place where you can come to the game and relax. But unfortunately, the legacy will show that they had no reason to be there to begin with, especially with their little guys. And that
Hmm.
baseball should have been more about telling you in advance because they know in the winter months what happened the previous year, and they could expect to tell you what should be coming in the following year based on what happened the year before. And they didn't tell anyone what to expect. And I believe that is the main issue here. If that
Hmm.
information was shared and, and revealed, then of course there would have been agencies that may have stepped in long ago and said, "Wait, it's okay that you're marketing your business as danger and flirting with danger and line drives, but you can't let 4-year-olds sit there. You could do it if they're 18 or 21 and older, but you can't do it." You can't allow your kids to
Right.
come. If they marketed their sport since 1970 as risky proposition, please come and pay your money, that's one thing, but they never did anything like that. They marketed towards children. And as you know, most fans go to the game usually carefree. Usually,
Mhm.
the kids are going to get their snacks and have a great time. And when you're already there, Tammy, you're not able to defend yourself. Once you're getting to the seat and they tell you be careful of a foul ball or pay attention, that's really no solution. We're not the great defenders. We're not superheroes. We
Mhm.
can't get out of the way. We're not capable. Professional baseball players are not there to protect their families on their nights off. They're not going to sit
Mhm.
there.
The lack of transparency is definitely jarring. Linda Goldblum died in 2018 in the Loge level at Dodger Stadium, and her death wasn't reported for 5 months. So after her death,
Wow.
children, may have been sitting where she sat, completely
Mhm.
unaware that a foul ball had killed her just days before, weeks before. Also,
Yeah.
how often this happens is really jarring.
Uh-huh.
Jordan knows of a woman who was blinded in the '70s. That
Mhm.
probably should have been, if it was the first time, the first and only time. But we know of 2 men who were blinded 15 days apart from each other in 2023 at 2 different games. It's just gross
Mhm.
negligence. Shouldn't be
Yeah.
continuing to happen.
So, I mean, when we talk about risk versus responsibility, well, there's going to be some fans out there that say, well, foul balls is just part of the game, right? And catching one is
Mhm.
part of the game and part of the excitement and the risk that you accept when you buy a ticket. And, I know that whenever we actually had actual tickets in our hands, there was a little statement on the back, but now we've got tickets that are
Mhm.
electronic. We put them in our wallet, they're on our phone, and no one's going to
Right.
stop and read anything like that. So, how do you respond to those fans that say, well, people should know the risks?
I would like baseball to spend a few dollars. I turned back the clock 1971 before the season started after the 14-year-old boy died. There was no netting above the dugouts at the time. It took about 45 years till about 2015, 2016 before Nets started going over the dugouts at 30 professional ballparks. And then the 169, there was still one team in Peoria, Illinois that ended their season last year without netting above the dugouts, an affiliate of the St. Louis Cardinals. So
Mhm.
we can go team by team, we can go year by year, but let's just go year by year. Wasn't there a wonderful opportunity, a teaching moment, a learning moment to educate all at Dodger Stadium in 1970, between the 70 and the 71 season, and tell those season ticket holders that sat in the same row as Alan Fish, in the same seat as Alan Fish, to be open to the fact that this is a dangerous situation for you and your family. That we have all this information here. We need to impart this information on you. We're looking for solutions so nobody ever will experience the same thing again. But they didn't address it. We've interviewed 2 bat boys, Brendan and I. I've been working with the journalist for 6 years, 2 bat boys who worked for the team 15, 20 years later, and they didn't even know about the 14-year-old boy who died. 2 bat boys,
Mhm.
and they didn't
Mhm.
know about this 1970 incident. And that was another opportunity for us to talk about this situation. Why is it that you have to discover all the data on your own? Why is it that you have to come to the game and then learn maybe I'm not in the safest position because you're then there and they may even warn you that you're in a place you may not want to be. But they're telling
Mhm.
you because they feel like they have to tell you at least that. But it's not until you get to the game. I don't think they've spent a penny on any kind of public relations or putting out a 1 or 2 pager every winter. I think
Mhm.
if they had ever done anything like that, it would have brought the attention of all of the agencies that would have been like, "Well, we never knew about this till now. Oh, now we have to respond." And even if it's agencies responding 50 years after the fact, hopefully they would say something today like, "Well, we should have learned about this 55 years ago. How come we didn't know about this?" The children's agencies, the children's
Mhm.
protective agencies, the OSHAs of the world, the
Uh,
people that are supposedly looking out for the 14 and the 15 and the 16-year-old vendors walking up and down the aisles with their backs turned and
mhm.
not in a position to defend themselves. None of us are really in a position to defend of ourselves, whether we're staring without blinking. I have one example, Tammy. We have something at the website called Exhibit A2, which is Hunter Windelstadt is an umpire who was staring without blinking, doing his job. From home to first base is 90 feet away, and he's 10 feet behind the base, and he gets hit with a line drive right in his head, and he hasn't been back to work in 5 months. And
Gosh.
who knows if he's ever gonna work again, and he's
Mhm.
staring without blinking. So, we know of at least 30 to 40 ballparks that have no netting at all past the end of dugouts, and that's
Mhm.
100 feet away as well, a little to the right on the first base side, a little to the left on the third base side. How are those folks gonna there's no formula for safety unless everyone's in full body armor, and I'm not saying that's the solution. I'm saying we need to create a conversation. We want to first inform the fans that knew little about this issue, create that epiphany of awareness, and get people to finally step up from their own experiences. Maybe they'll feel like, wow, we sat in similar sections all those years while the little guys were growing up. And we had no idea. The kids were carefree. We were carefree. And why would we be different? And you would know, Tammy, from your own experiences being a mom. But either way, even if those gestures have improved, where there's even a sign right on your cup holder, like right in front of you, where the seat is in front of you, where the cup holder is for your drink, they're telling you, be careful of the foul ball. Okay, let's say those measures have improved over the last few years. Let's say the netting has improved over the last few years, which it has in places, but we could take you through all things that were ever put out there by the commissioner's office, which really smells like they're delaying and they're not addressing the whole matter today. Why not address solutions today rather than just piecemeal improvements? There's still a big element of us being left in the dark. Why not just finally get us all caught up to speed on what was and let everyone in on it? That's what discussions are supposed to do, Tammy.
Yeah. And, it really becomes a discussion around, assumed risk versus
Mhm,
preventable harm, right? And, I think about in the
mhm,
hospital, right? Everyone
mhm,
has an assumed risk whenever they come into the
mhm.
hospital. But then as a hospital, you're held accountable for preventing harm to your patients. So, like, where do you think that line should be drawn?
Yeah, it's just a matter of I want people to finally pay attention to the issue, and that's what we're
Mhm,
doing at Foul Ball Safety Now. We once you know where the people are at civic association meetings, Tammy, everyone's got something to say.
mhm.
So that's
That's
what
right.
we want, Brianna and I, we wanna be laid back, and we wanna hear once we put all this unknown information on the table, we want people to look at it for a few minutes, and we just
Mhm.
listen. And I'm like, "Okay, finally, this conversation is happening. How interesting is that?" Let you decide on where your epiphany of awareness is. Is it from all those experience where you feel like the wool was pulled over your eyes? We hope so. We hope that's how the fan may feel because that
Mhm.
may tell them all of those memories may have to be tainted now to some extent because they know somebody was seriously injured the day before or the day after. And once you know that, you'll be like, wow, all those 4 times a year we had gone to those games, we had no idea that there could have been something this crazy. But yes, now you're
Sure.
learning that there was. And We continually find things about self-reported injuries in 2025, as Brianna brought up about 2 people who've been blinded at the major league level in 2023. And Mrs. Goldblum, unfortunately, I had the honor of meeting Mr. Goldblum, whose wife passed in 2018. He was very nice and generous with his time. And his daughter, Jana Brody, who obviously lost her mom, she wrote a book called Sit Behind the Nets. That's a pretty powerful title for a
It
name
is.
of a book for somebody who lost their mom to a foul ball. And she was very kind, and she mentioned foul ball safety now in her book, so we appreciate that. But
Mhm.
it's really all about giving these victims an opportunity to get the reconciliation that they deserve. So I certainly want to stay on this conversation until their history is addressed. And of course, until I can finally say either, we're no longer in the dark ages, 2025 and before, or moving forward, there's a bigger entity, Tammy, that learns about what we're doing and pushes me over
Yeah.
to the side and says, "We got it from here." And I'll be like, "Take it. You got it.
Yeah.
We want to give you everything you may have missed."
It's hard for me to accept that there's an assumption of risk
Assumption
at
of
play
risk.
here because so many people aren't aware of the scope of the risk. And a big reason why that is that this information is just not readily made public a lot of the time. The MLB makes a lot of the lawsuits against them disappear. If it's a high profile incident, they usually settle outside of court, and it includes an NDA so
Mhm.
that victims can't publicly speak about the injury. And as a parent, it pisses me off because they openly market towards children. They have theme nights that are designed to bring children in. A lot of ballparks and stadiums have playgrounds, and I just don't believe that any parent walks into public place that's marketing towards children thinking that they're about to have a life-altering experience. But that has been the case for so many families, it's heartbreaking.
We've seen, like, stadiums, and across all sports, honestly, but within MLB, I mean, stadiums have evolved dramatically. I mean, there's bigger screens, there's better sound. To your point, there's more amenities, there's games like, that kids can play and playgrounds and whatnot. So, given all that progress, should fan safety have advanced just as much?
I would hope so, but we know that this conversation needs to continue because there'll continually be people who self-report their injuries. Until something changes, the math is the math. We just have to look at Exhibit A1 and foul ball safety now. In 2019, there were 53 foul balls per game. And again, people can see what Brendan and I did. We took a look at a published report from a publication called 538 back in 2019. We incorporated our own research into that report, and people can check out Exhibit A1 for themselves, almost figure it out for themselves, finding their own roots and their own experiences. And now they can determine, maybe the wool was pulled over our eyes to some extent.
Yeah.
Baseball just truly has not told us more about this matter until we got to the game, and once you get to the game, nobody would be on a road where the road said, "Landmines, be careful." You would never go down that road. Similar, you wouldn't go on any construction site without helmets, and you wouldn't be bringing your kids. If the element which I bring up, the danger factor, which is realistic, and you can be seriously injured, which is realistic, is you need to tell the fans about the danger element. And yes, if baseball was marketing to kids, they should have been including the fact that when the kids are there, there's no worry in the world, mom and dad, none. But no, that's not the case. They were marketing it to the families, and they did not assure you in the same marketing campaign that your kids would be okay, and that's their
Mhm.
legacy, and unfortunately, we are in the dark ages in 2025. I do want to continue this for as long as necessary to make sure that there's better ways of baseball doing business as usual. I have to. I feel like it's not my calling, it's my work. I'm a baseball guy. I have to
Right.
watch baseball a little differently now. I loved baseball before I started, but I've been aware of this issue maybe more than most over the last 20 years. I had situations myself where I felt anxiety sitting close by without netting at a big playoff game in 2006. I also experienced when there was no netting above the dugout. Had a great seat view-wise, but when it came to being exposed, I was nervous as heck because I didn't usually sit in those great seats. And then in early 2000s, I was in Brooklyn, New York, where I'm from,
Mhm.
and we're in Coney Island, and that's where the Brooklyn Cyclones play. And
Uh-huh.
there's a group of us, young and old, hanging out on the avenue, and a ball just comes right over the sides, and it hits this young person we were with right in the forearm, left a big mark
Mhm.
on his arm. And why is business as usual in these I'm not gonna say the 30 ballparks. There are home run and balls hit in some of these places which leave the field. In Wrigley Field, balls are flying out on the avenue. In Boston, they're flying out on the avenue, and I think it's San Francisco, maybe another place or 2. But how about those other 169 ballparks and all those colleges? We're dealing with a college player who's going through psychological trauma right now. People can check out the Queens College investigation, where we have a few letters out to the administration, did get a response back from the athletic director. We didn't want to single him out. How many colleges, how many of those 169 professional clubs are dealing with the fact that balls could be flying outside on pavements, on windows, and on
Mhm.
people like it did in Modesto, California? There's probably, Tammy, in the 3-hour period at these professional games, probably 10 or 15 balls that just fly outside, which hit the pavement, which hit the window. And in this case, it hit the woman in the head and she can't work anymore. And why
Yeah.
were people not notified in Modesto, California for the last 2 summers to walk around with an umbrella of some kind that would
Yeah.
block the baseball? But that's not the case. Nope, it wasn't reported, but we wrote 3 letters to the Modesto newspaper, and a lot of times newspapers won't go all in on the journalism end of it because sports is big business for newspapers, and they may get a revenue from advertising, and they don't wanna piss off the teams. So, we feel like the fans are the voice. If there's 80 million baseball fans, 79 million of them do not work within the industry and are free to speak about their own experiences, and if they discover things they didn't know about, I think most of us are still hopefully in the mindset of "Bring it on," and we do, we
Yeah.
bring on information. So that's what we'll
You know,
continue to do.
I definitely, applaud the efforts for sure. Whenever we think
Yes.
about the critics around us and netting changes, so some of them say that extending the nets beyond the dugout, to the
Pole,
foul line
that's what
pole,
they've been
right?
saying. Yeah,
Right, that's what they've
mhm.
been saying. A lot of fans will say, "Oh, that's gonna change the experience." And
Mhm.
so or the fan experience, that is.
Sure,
So,
sure,
do you see a way to preserve that thrill,
sure.
that these fans get while still
Mhm.
keeping them safe?
So we had a lawyer on one of these recordings recently, and he was all about solutions. And I like when people throw out solutions because that's what happens at the Civic Association meeting. So, Jordan, they would ask me, how are you going to transition the preconception of everyone going to a game and wanting to catch a foul ball, and all of a sudden you're going to take that experience away? Or how are people see through the netting? All of that. So, yes, we can do that too as a society. I'm very confident that they can come up with retractable nets as high as they need to be, and they can give the children and the autograph seekers an opportunity to get that. An autograph or meet a player and say a few words. They could come up with all kinds of fan friendly experiences. At the same time, they possess this knowledge. They do possess this knowledge that it's a danger. So when they put out information that says our fans aren't interested in extending netting, which they've done over the years. At the same time, they're possessing this intimate knowledge that it's dangerous. So they're perpetuating this illusion that fans are against netting. Well, if you were educated the families, we would suck it up and say, "Oh, wow, luckily we're in 2025 and the netting seems to be very transparent and we're great. We're good." And most people who have been asked, I think, have been fine with the netting extensions where they're not seeing the netting. They kind of, you get used to it, right? You get used to
Mhm.
the netting in front of you. But we have to present what we know as a major industry, and they're not. And then they're saying on top of that, without disclosing everything, they're saying our fans aren't interested in extending netting. You need to say this is bottom line. It could be life or death, and that's why we're doing it. But at the same time, fortunately, we are in 2025, and the netting is absolutely amazing. Everyone's
Mhm.
fine with it. But even back in 1970, even if the netting looked more like wire and that was the only solution, well, so be it. Then you
Mhm.
would have told people 18 and older, and you understand you could take a line drive to the neck. You should have done it
Mhm.
all. You should have been on top of it as a responsible corporation, and they've gotten a big fat F in my mind. And once people learn about this, they'll determine, I believe, just how bad that F really is. But
Yeah.
I want everyone to decide for themselves and enter this conversation on their own terms, whether they're individuals or organizations that never knew anything about this that may have stepped in years ago.
Yeah. So, how much responsibility do you think should fall on the league versus, say, local stadium operators?
Sure. Well, the 30 major league teams usually hire the commissioner's office. They usually are
Uh,
responsible for who's running the MLB, right? So it's really
huh?
a consensus. If the 30 billionaire owners don't like the commissioner, he's gone. In this case, they've had the same commissioner for about a decade, and he was also in the game for another 30 years in a supporting role, probably a very high supporting role. He's a very bright man. But in regards to all of that, it's collectively, it's the commissioner's office, it's the individual owners, and clearly the individual owners of the 169 clubs, 120 of them whose salaries are paid for by the 30 billionaire clubs, they all have their 4 affiliates, they certainly should have been stepping up longer and demanding that their affiliates do more.
Okay.
So, it's a wealthy industry, everyone's doing great. If one team's not doing great, there'll be a new owner that comes in and turns it around. That's how that goes on the major league level, and these other clubs, you need to keep the people safe and informed, and we haven't done that to any
Mhm.
higher standard. Again, I give them an F, and I want people to determine if they believe an F is appropriate or if it's even worse. So I just want people to kind of walk into this conversation and take it from their perspective, because that's what we want. We want in a civic, so we want a robust conversation, and that's what we're attempting to do. Effectively, these conversations of the three of us are all about effectively starting a larger conversation.
This is interesting, and I'm thinking about it, and I'd love to hear from both of you on,
Sure.
do you think this issue could benefit from, say, outside regulatory bodies, like maybe state or federal standards around this? I mean, to ensure that ballparks meet consistent safety expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we've been saying for a while there needs to be an independent netting council for all professional ball clubs, inside and outside, to determine if their business as usual is being done correctly. And there are solutions, there's technological solutions. Again, the Civic Association is going to bring out that whole idea of getting people to this conversation is gonna bring out everyone's gonna bring up ideas. Technology, MIT, netting blockers, blow the baseball up before it, reaches the parking lot. All kinds of things are gonna come out, which is fine. And unfortunately, if MLB and the 30 teams had their house in order, imagine what they could do for the rest of the country, because they would then nurture the experiences of making it safer or safe, period, for all of the other professional clubs, for the colleges, for even the high schools. I've been contacted by a high school looking for money. They thought I had money that I could help them create
Mhm.
netting so they could have soccer games going on at the same time while they have baseball games going on. At least they're talking about it. That's a good
Okay.
thing. They don't want balls raining on the soccer fields while there's games going on. I get it. But we can only do what we can do is try to Let's make sure that everyone knows from their own baseball experiences as individuals, people in healthcare. I've sponsored 2 calls with pediatricians. I had posts on places like Indeed. It said something like, "Pediatricians wanted to organize conference calls with other pediatricians." And yes, they were incentivized to call me, and they did. And they heard all about my foul ball journey, and a few of the 35 pediatricians I spoke with took part in organizing conferences. They didn't really get anywhere where I wanted them to go, but I ended up speaking to 35 pediatricians in the interview process, and they were very curious to learn about what I've been doing. So it's an opportunity for all of us to step up and step in, and I just
Yeah.
want everyone to do that.
I'm definitely with Jordan on this one that I think the only way a solution will come at this point in the game is an external agency or even, federal power stepping in and taking over because the league has had every opportunity to fix this on their own watch. And they've
Yeah.
just been moving at a snail's pace here. No
Mhm.
sense of urgency that we've seen from them really. So, I definitely think it's gonna take someone from the outside coming in to fix it, and I hope that these types of conversations will continue to just spread awareness and get the word out there, and hopefully we'll see some change in the near future, and I know we were talking earlier in the episode about how a lot of fans, have that initial knee-jerk reaction to push back for change, but things do need to change. It can't keep going on like this with people getting seriously injured and, Jordan's had some ideas before in the past about maybe a retractable net that can come down before play starts and there can still be that player interaction. There are so many solutions with the technology that we have today to keep that nostalgic, feel good sense in the game, but also prevent people from getting injured. I believe it can happen. So,
Yeah. So with that, let's shift to solutions, and because this show is about progress, right? It's not just about problems, but we certainly identified that there are some for sure. So, if you could redesign the fan experience for safety, what would that look like?
I think all of us would be barking out some great ideas and great solutions, but I know that we can all kind of change our mindsets with a little bit of help. And the corporations have all the money and the resources to start re-educating us about the fan experience or shifting our expectations, the day-to-day experience of going to a game from the 11-year-old perspective. Even the woman who looked bad on TV a month and a half ago when she was trying to take the ball away. I don't know if everyone
Mhm.
saw that. She was
Yes,
famous for 2
yes.
days. She had finally had a moment. It might have taken her 50 or 60 years. Her 11-year-old came out. She was like, "Give me back that ball. I've been waiting
Mhm.
my whole life for that ball." So, yes, there's an urgency of trying to be the 1 in 50,000 to catch a ball. I got a ball once. It rolled down the aisle. It wasn't a fancy catch of any kind, and I had the ball. I was very excited. I even had a T-shirt in my hand at the time, so I actually tossed the T-shirt because I was like, "I have a ball, been waiting my whole
Mhm.
life for this. I don't need this free T-shirt that I just got, at the gate." And I kinda said, "Look, I got a ball, but you could have my T-shirt."
There you
So
go.
I went through that euphoria for a few minutes. It wore off, right? It wasn't when I was 11 years old, it was 15 years ago, alright? But at the same time, we can do it. We can give out 150 balls a game, even more foul balls that would come. A lawyer said to me, Jordan, they should have nets up and they should project if the ball was going to go to section 102 or section 202, who and row 4 and seat 2, then that kid would get that ball. Like it just went up on the scoreboard. That ball was projected to hit that seat, and then that kid would get a seat, get a toy, or get a baseball. All kinds of
Mhm.
things could be done. It's just a matter of we can don't worry, with a little bit of budget and ingenuity, everyone's going to come up with ways that we're determining to move on as a society or in a baseball society. They're going to have to acknowledge what was and what is, and that's part of what we do with foul ball safety now. And we want to remember back in 10 years from now that 2025 hopefully was the last years of the dark ages. And when business was done as usual, I think enough people are going to determine for themselves that they knew very little before they had gone to the game about what the real risks were. So we have to go through that, and we also come up with solutions of the fan experience all in the same conversation. It's all a
Yeah.
beginning of addressing it all. Let's do it all. We could do I'm telling you, there'll be people on all kinds of committees. There'll be all kinds of subcommittees will be forming, and Brianna and I will be like, "Look what we started. This is
Mhm.
exciting." So
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
optimistic. We're optimistic over here. Let's just breathe out life about what we know, and that'll breathe in life. That'll bring life back to us. Interesting new input.
And, you said that this is really about, saving lives without changing the game. And so that,
Yes.
that is such a powerful line. I'd love to ask you as we're kind of wrapping up a bit. So
Yes.
if you had the commissioner sitting across from you right now,
Yeah.
what would you say to him? Not as an activist, with foul ball safety now, but as a lifelong fan. What would you truly want him to understand about what's at stake here?
I would say, Rob, you know what I've been doing for the last 6.5 years? You finally found out about me a couple of years ago, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So now you know who I am. Now we're meeting. Okay, great. My journey, my instincts, would you say to me one on one, do you think my instincts have been correct of trying to create this conversation moving forward? And hopefully he would say to me, man to man, Jordan, if your instincts told you to follow through, who's to tell you that you shouldn't follow through? I don't think he would say yes because he would legally open himself up to something. He would
Mhm.
be very careful on how he would shake my hand or say some words to me. Everything is very thought out. You understand that too, Tammy.
Mhm.
Every word that comes out of their mouth in response to any question that came out about foul balls or anything else that they're very good at dancing around the question.
Mhm.
And the lawyers, and him being a very sharp lawyer, would know exactly how to respond. So if he acknowledged that I was doing what I should have been doing, that will tell me that, well, we need to continue doing more, and we will. And we're in healthy aggression. We want this to be a place of 10 years from now, maybe all of our information will be displayed first in the spring of 2026 in a pop up, like a
Mhm.
store, like a former,
Yeah.
uh, like a place where people can come in to understand all about the past and the present situations with foul balls, and hopefully it would transition into a solution center kind of thing where 10 years from now we could say all that work that started back in 2025 or was on display in 2025 all kind of transition to it's still a place where people visit, but it's more of a place of remembrance rather than a place of check out the situation and what can you do about it. It almost as it opens up as a learning center and find out for yourself about the foul ball experience, and then hopefully others will join in on all of this, and we can talk about you remember back when 2025 when business as usual was done in a way that wasn't really open to for the people having a full understanding of what the big picture was. And now everyone knows what the big picture was. A short time after, and then all things happen. All those civic associations, conversations that I envision happening. Everyone has
Uh-huh.
something to say, and it's the national pastime, so it can definitely transition into a better place. And we're going to watch it go through that. We're going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and you kinda answered my next question was, what does success look like, for
Mhm.
foul ball safety now in 5 or 10 years? So, it was a great segue into that. So, yeah, Jordan and Brianna, I really, would love to thank you for sharing your passion, all your research, everything. I think this is a great cause.
We appreciate that.
A majority of these incidents that we see end up being traumatic brain injuries. So, Tammy, I was hoping you could shed some light for our listeners on how serious is a brain injury, even a minor one, and what kind of side effects are people potentially going to be dealing with for the rest of their life?
Oh my goodness. Head injuries, it's such a broad spectrum, right? There's so many degrees of head injuries. And, it can be from a concussion, is a brain injury, to someone their life being absolutely changed forever. And, they can't walk, they can't talk, they can't feed themselves, they can't interact with their loved ones, their friends like they used to. So I mean, it's can be just a huge life altering injury, and I mean, again, like a concussion, you can have frequent headaches, you could have nausea and vomiting, you could have all of these things. So it's just such a wide spectrum, and it's something that I think people don't realize that it's just life changing.
Well, that was powerful. Well, listen, this was really
Mm.
good. We've met victims, we've met people who have unfortunately lost eyes and have had concussions, and Erwin Goldblum and others that have shared a lot of loss with us, but we're also optimistic and we want people just to feel like this is a necessary conversation. And by you being part of this with Tammy, you bring your perspective and your thoughtful words. So we appreciate that. And I think until next time, everyone, I thank everyone for coming to Foul Safety Now. Please check out the website and you'll see all the things we're posting, and we'll do it again soon. Thank you, everyone.